Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to Swift Slots. Now recently I've been going on eBay and Marketplace and so on and buying some of the old Scalextric cars that I used to have as a kid in the 70s and my friends did as well, and some of the ones in the 90s that I had or I really liked. And I notice on YouTube there's a lot of videos now where everybody's got to grab the latest car, and that's all well and good, but sometimes I wonder if we forget that back in the past we had some great cars, and it's those cars that actually got us to where we are today and our interest. And I think sometimes we should take a deep breath and just take a look back and appreciate the cars that we've had in the past and play with them in isolation. And that's what I've been doing recently, buying up all the old cars that I had or my friends had and just sort of giving them a second chance in my own mind and in my collection. So really, this car ought to be in a mail call video, but I'm far too impatient and I really want to get this video done because I want to show you some tyres and make this video all about tyres for your old Scalextric cars. Now I actually picked up this car from the Gaydon Slot Car Show this year in 2024, and it's a great car. It's the best example I could find, but handle it doesn't. The back tyres are absolutely dry. Now I've tried to sand them to freshen up the rubber. I've tried to put thinners on them to try and get some of that fresh rubber to the surface, and I can almost get it round the track, but it's it needs work. Now this is the car that I've just acquired. Like I say, it should have been in a mail call video, but I want to play with it. So I've got this car in, and it's an old 1992, I believe they made these F40s. So the tyres are pretty hard. I've taken one off. Pretty hard and pretty old, and there's just no grip left to them. So with this in mind, I've noticed on eBay there's a seller that sells reproduction Scalextric tyres, and I have a set here. Also, Pendle Slot do a set of tyres that will also fit the old classic Scalextrics. Now I did actually start with the Pendle Slot side of things with these replacement tyres for my Lotus. Now these are a direct replacement for the Lotus, and having used Pendle Slot rubber in the past on my 1/48th scale Carrera 911 on the track test that I did with that, I've noticed that these Pendle Slot rubber tyres are really sticky. So I think these tyres directly replaced on the Scalextric Lotus will be really good. So I've got those to try. And also I've got a set of the tyres from eBay. Now these are an exact replica of what came on the cars originally. Now I've looked at them through a magnifying glass and they are almost identical, but not exactly identical. You'll only really see the difference through a microscope, really. It's in the tyre wall markings mostly, but they're a very good representation of the original tyres. And obviously they're fresh rubber, so they should go quite well. And then we got the Pendle Slot tyres. Now these come in two different styles of rubber. They do an F20 and a slightly stickier F15. So the F20s are £5 a set of 4. The F15s are 50p more, so they're £5.50 for a set of 4. And there's £2.95 postage on the Pendle tyres. The eBay tyres are £4.95 a set of 4, and they're £1.65 in postage. So really, they're about the same price. But if you go with the Pendle Slot tyres, your postage can actually be used to buy other products while you're there. So you could dilute down this pound or so extra postage in other products, whereas you can't really do that on eBay. So on balance, they're about the same price. Now, with the tyres from eBay, they're easy. Pick your car, pick your tyres, job done. They fit, no problems. But I really do think that Pendle Slot are missing out here, because these tyres, although they're designed for a 5mm rib, and the Scalextric cars are actually 4.4mm rib, they do actually fit the Scalextric cars really well, albeit with that ever so slight 0.5mm differential. Now I've looked under the microscope with a set of Pendle Slot tyres on the Scalextric rib that's supposed to be too small. And yes, I can get a very small amount of movement side to side on the rim with that tyre. But it's, like I say, 0.5 millimetre. It's almost nothing. Now that can be easily negated with some nail varnish if it bothers you that much. Now Harry from Home Racing World absolutely recommends, or used to recommend, the Sally Hansen Hard as Nail varnish. Now, I've had a couple of nail varnishes historically, and I didn't find them to be particularly good. They're a bit rubbery, they don't really go hard. Whereas this stuff absolutely does. And I got this from my ordinary super truck. So even in the UK, you can get Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails, no problem at all. And like I say, Harry swears by it, and I do as well now, having used a range of them in the past. So if that little bit of side play bothers you that much, put them on with a bit of nail varnish. It works really, really well. So the whole point of this video is to take my old dead Scalextric tyres and replace them with a set of eBay tyres and a set of Pendle Slot tyres, and see which tyres actually work better, and see if there's any positives or negatives in either way that you choose to go. I also want to show you how much you can transform one of these old Scalextric Formula 1 cars, because I know for a fact this car here skates around on the track like it's on ice. So I'm going to be really, really curious to see how much of an improvement I can get out of this Lotus with a set of the straight up Pendle Slot tyres. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get you on my bench here now. I'm going to show you these tyres in really close up detail, and then we'll go to the track. We'll do some test laps with the old tyres on, and we'll see how that goes. And then we'll put the new tyres on, and we'll see how the car handles and the sort of increase in time. Now, I'll be using Ricard Valley this time round because I've not used it in a video yet, and I know that the track surface on that, being a urethane finish, isn't the grippiest in the world. So if I can get some good grip on Ricard Valley, we'll know that everything else will be really, really good. And like I say, I'm on MDF, I'm not on plastic, so there'll be no magnets. So what you see now will be purely rubber traction going down straight to the track. So if you're running magnets, it'll be even better than that. So let's get you on my table and I'll show you these tyres in close-up detail. Okay, so let's start with the really easy one, that being the TP01 replacement tyre set from Pendle Slot. Now, hopefully you can tell, but maybe not, this tyre is as dry as a bone, and also the tyre wall is starting to deteriorate as well. Now, I have tried to sand the top of these tyres to try and generate a little bit of fresh rubber. It's not happening. No matter what I do, it's just dry all the way through. So these tyres should be a really good replacement for these original tyres. And as you can see, they're a very good match, both profiles. These ones have the very, very thin rib in the middle to match the Scalextric's thin rib. And they also come as a full set, so you get the front ones as well. Not that you really need the front ones particularly, but sometimes they are often split, and that's when you'll want the front ones. But being as a match set for this car, absolutely fantastic. Now, these back tyres didn't generate enough grip even to push past the guide half of the time. Now, I know the front axle is a problem, but it should generate enough grip really to get past the friction of the guide no matter what. And also, these tyres for this car are actually cheaper than all the other tyres. These are only £4.50 for a full set of 4 to transform your old vintage slot car. So they should be a really good upgrade to this car, and we'll see on the track how well they actually go. Okay, so next we have the reproduction tyres from eBay to fit the Scalextric's Ferrari F40. Now, one thing to notice on this particular car is the front and rear tyres are actually different. The wheels are the same, but the tyres are different. The front tyres are smaller in profile, and they're also narrower than the rear wheels. Also to note is there's serrations around the outside rim of this tyre. On the Scalextric's tyre, they're very pronounced. On the reproduction tyre, they're not quite so pronounced. Other than that, they're basically the same, and the ribs are exactly the same. And the rear tyre is a slightly deeper tyre, both in width and in profile. Again, the ribs are exactly the same, but it has no rim detail around the outside like the front tyre. Now, the other thing to note with the reproduction tyre is the actual profile of the tyre once mounted onto the wheel. They do come off this car very easily. I'll be gluing them on before the test. You can actually see that the reproduction tyre, this one, is actually concaved on the wheel. So it's not actually a perfect fit. It looks identical on the outside, and the dimensions themselves are perfect. But the actual tyre profile is a little bit concaved. So you're not going to get a huge amount of contact patch on the reproduction tyre, even if it is very grippy. You're going to lose a little bit of grip because there's nothing touching the track in the middle, and you can't really sand it off because these tyres are very thin, and also you'll lose half of the tyre if you do that. So there's something to consider with the aftermarket tyres from eBay. Okay, so next we have the replacement tyre set from Pendle Slot Racing for the Scalextric's Ferrari F40. And like I said before, because the Ferrari has got different tyres, front and rear, you're going to want the 18 by 10 on the front, and you're going to want the 20 by 10 on the rear. Now, one thing to note with these tyres is that they do actually have a very slightly larger diameter when they're mounted on the wheels over the standard Scalextric's tyre. So if we pop that one on there and we measure, the diameter on the rim is there. So it's just about 21 mil. It's just holding there. And the original tyre is coming in at 19.6 in diameter. So there's a little tiny bit of difference. Now that's actually a good thing, because it gives you some allowance to actually put this tyre on a tyre truing machine, if that would be your preference, and actually get a really wide contact patch. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. Now personally, I find that these Ferrari tyres are a little bit small in the arch. So with the Pendle Slot Racing wheel and tyre, you actually get a much fuller arch, and it sits the profile down nicely. So that's one little advantage of the Pendle Slot tyres. Plus, like I say, you don't have that concave like you do in the reproduction tyre, because these tyres are nice and flat. Now these tyres in width are ever so slightly narrower than the original tyre, so we got pretty much 10 mil there, and these original tyres are just about 10.4. So these tyres here are about 0.4 of a millimetre narrower. That said, you've got 100% tyre contact, so what you lose in width, you gain in actual contact patch. Plus, you could put a tyre truer over there and get the top of that tyre down and make even more contact. So with regards to the size of the front tyres, I will show you now. If you pop a front tyre on a wheel, because the front and rear wheels are the same, it's just the tyre size that changes. So we have a width now of 19.9, say 20 mil, and then we have the front tyres here. I can't actually take these. Oh, there we are. There, right. So if I come in there, I can feel it's about 18.7 mil. So again, these front tyres are a little bit taller than the original wheels, but that shouldn't be a problem at all. Right. So let's get on the track and let's see what we've got. And there it is, the little test to see what aftermarket Scalextric tyres work best on these old Scalextric classic cars. And I don't think the results really surprise anybody. The reproduction tyres work really well. They're obviously better than old crusty tyres, and they'll slide before they grit roll, and they look the part, and they go really well for what they are. The Pendle Slot tyres, super grippy, and they'll tend to grit roll before they'll slide, and you really do realise that you need to start tuning more with the Pendle Slot tyres because they just grip so much more. So with a standard reproduction tyre, you can fit them and just run the car, and it'll be a bit slidey, and it'll be a lot better than it was, but you know, there is a performance limit there. Pendle Slot tyres, if you really want to race your car hard, go for those because they grip like mad. And you will need to you'll need to put a little bit of weight here and there just to sort of get the car to really balance and hook up well, because they are a more performance orientated tyre. And don't forget, I didn't glue any of these tyres on, and I didn't true any of them either. So I literally took them out of the packet and put them straight on the car, gave them a clean on some tape, and just ran them, and they ran really well. Sometimes aftermarket tyres, they can be quite bouncy, especially the cheaper ones. These didn't. Both of these ran really well. I can't complain about either of them. So my conclusion is, if you want a shelf queen and you want to put the car back on the shelf with some non-split tyres with some nice looking tread and so on and so forth, and you want to run them but occasionally run them, you're not too worried about performance, then the reproduction tyres are actually pretty good. They're pretty fine. They run really nicely. However, if you're someone who likes to run their old cars and you want to have some enjoyment from them, and you don't mind adding a little bit of weight just to get the car to perform that much nicer, then the Pendle Slot tyres are definitely the choice to make. Like I said in the beginning of the video, Pendle Slot really are missing a trick with these tyres for their old Scalextric cars, because they really are very good. You could argue that they're not quite the right size for the rib, but 0.5 millimetre really doesn't seem to make any difference. And as you saw, I didn't glue these tyres on. I just put them on and ran them as hard as I could before they fell off the track. And they ran really well. Those tyres didn't shift at all. They didn't come off the rims or anything. They were perfect. So there are plenty of tyres in their range, and I would advise you to send an email to Pendle Slot to make sure you get the right tyres for your car. And also remember, they do two different types. They do the F22, which is the harder compound, and they do the F15, which is the softer compound. And also, my little Lotus here, the better performer of the two cars, which did surprise me, this has actually got F30 tyres on. So they're actually harder again than the F22s. This has actually got the F22s on. And the little Lotus outperformed the Ferrari quite easily. I was astonished at how much performance this little car has actually got. So give Pendle Slot an email and they'll square you up as to which tyre would suit your car the best. So my personal takeaway from this whole video is it's really worth looking at these old cars, because they're really nice when you get them sorted out. Back in the day when we were racing them as kids, we didn't know what weight was all about, or even changing braids most of the time. It's like you had a little slither of wire on there and you just kind of used that. We were 10, 11, 8, we didn't know anything about it. But now we're sort of a little bit older. We can look back and we can take those cars and we can make them better like this now. We can add new tyres, add new braids, add a little bit of weight, slacken the body off a little bit, and breathe a little bit more life back into these old cars. And I've really enjoyed running these two cars around my track. They're really rewarding. You don't need an NSR that's doing 1,000 miles an hour. As long as the car handles reasonably nicely, or you can make it handle nicely, there's a lot of fun to be had from these really old cars. If you pick the car right, they're really quite rewarding to drive. So, if you've enjoyed this sort of content, maybe you'll subscribe. And if you could hit the little bell button, that would be awesome. So until the next time, thank you very much.